Hi, fellow PCS 101 students. Before I get any further, I need to make you all aware of a fact that might be shocking. The Tooth Fairy is not real. Hi, I'm Lucia DeRico, and in my 5-minute autobiographical speech, I will be telling you all the story of how I was bamboozled by the Tooth Fairy and affiliated magical creatures. I was a very imaginative child and an absolutely massive book nerd. I would read at least one 300 to 500 page book a week and was generally extremely precocious. As such, my parents realized very early on that one of the few ways to get me to behave was to use my imagination to their benefit. Like when I was around 6 and learning math for the first time, and my dad had been spending hours at this point trying to get me to learn basic arithmetic. I was absolutely refusing to and being a general nightmare. So he finally, my dad was also my teacher because I was homeschooled, finally said that if I didn't know my basic math when I got to Hogwarts, there was the potential I might flunk potions class. Horrified at the prospect of possibly not doing well in my dream school, I begrudgingly opened my workbook. My parents didn't just use characters and situations from books, they also used the classics. When a few months later, I was absolutely refusing to clean my room. My bedroom could have been classified a natural disaster at this point because you could barely see the floor through all the mess and debris everywhere. And I happened to lose a molar one day, and my parents saw an opportunity. And they came up to me and they said, "You know, Lucia, the Tooth Fairy might not be able to bring you a gift tonight because your room is so messy, your floor is too dirty, she can't get to your pillow." To which I responded that she has wings? She can just fly? And my parents, off the cuff, which I now think was quite impressive, responded that her gift might be so big, wink wink, that she might not be able to fly with it. She might need to carry it. She might even need help carrying it to my pillow. Intrigued, but still unwilling to clean my room, I walked down to the garage, past my confused parents, and went, and like any New England child, I had a little toy snow shovel, and I carried my toy snow shovel up to my bedroom, and I shoveled a fairy-size walkway from my door to my pillow. And I turned to my parents, and I said, "There, now the fairy can get from the door to my pillow." I did in fact get a gift from the Tooth Fairy that night, though I have a suspicion that it was out of sheer exhaustion from my parents than anything else. Regardless, this continued for a few more years, with my parents creating a whole host of magical creatures, not only to make me behave, but also to add whimsy to my childhood. Other family members would play along, and we had nature fairies, which would leave me notes on pieces of birch bark, solstice fairies, who would bring me gifts on the winter solstice, and I'm sure many more that I no longer remember. Until, a few years later, I was snooping through my mother's closet, an activity that I participated in alarmingly regularly. I blame it entirely on my overwhelming Nancy Drew obsession of the time. And in my mother's closet, I found some gifts that were very clearly for me. And I was very excited to get them. And so I waited, and I waited, and I waited until finally winter solstice rolled around. And my parents would give gifts on winter solstice instead of on Christmas because they believed Christmas to be too consumeristic, but also knew that if my little brother and I did not receive gifts in December, we would mutiny. Anyway, I came down the stairs, and lo and behold, the presents were there on the table. But instead of being addressed from my mom, they were addressed to me from the fairies. The jig was up, and despite many attempts by my parents when I finally confronted them of excuses and explanations that they were just holding the gifts for the fairies were just storing the gifts with them, I finally learned how deep the conspiracy ran, and I was livid. I was so upset and so angry. I couldn't believe that they had lied to me so entirely for so many years. I couldn't believe that I had believed it. And I also was really sad that all of these things that I believed were real weren't. And it really made me question the ethics of outrightly deceiving children. But that's a conversation for another time. For now, thank you so much for watching my video, and I look forward to meeting all of you. Have a lovely rest of your day.